Hello everyone! This is a video lecture from David Panush at the Edmund Burke School on Robert Wright's The Moral Animal in the class The Social Psychology. We're looking at chapter 13 just a little bit at the end, so it's a pretty short video lecture. So this part of the chapter begins with Wright speaking about what he calls dubious accounting. So something that is dubious is something that is suspect, that not quite accurate, or you don't quite trust it. So you can, or if you're just skeptical, you'd be like, I am dubious. And accounting, of course, is keeping track of things. So take it back to the idea of reciprocal altruism. I have a friend. I am trading back and forth favors with that friend. But now let's overlay the idea of the social hierarchy. Even though we're friends, we're still in the social hierarchy competing for status a little bit. And every little advantage might help. So how we keep track of the favors that we owe each other or pay each other, what we do for each other, is biased. And of course, it's going to be biased towards ourselves. So in other words, I am more likely to keep close track of the favors that I've done for you, and I'm going to keep close track of what you owe me, but I'm going to conveniently forget or minimize and use all those self-deceptive tricks we just talked about in the last video lecture to not pay close attention to or to forget what you've done for me in the past and what I may owe you. So our accounting of what we owe each other or what we've done for each other in the past is not going to match up exactly. So don't you remember that time that I lent you $5? And you're like, no, I don't remember. And you're like, but I remember. I mean, if you ever get in that kind of argument, or if you're on the other side of it where your friend says, I totally picked you up that one time, and you're like, no, I didn't, you didn't, I totally took the metro home. So you'll have different versions of the events, and the point is, your version is a bias towards you about what you are owed or how great your deeds have been, and how much they owe you and how not so great relatively their deeds have been done. Now keep in mind, this is not a matter of constantly getting into arguments with our friends about how much they owe or what we've done for them, because if we're constantly arguing with them about it, they're not going to be friends with us anymore, and then we lose all of the non-zero sum benefits, cooperation, of sharing resources that friendship brings. So it is only a slight tilting of the scales, and we try to tilt the scales slightly in our favor. And think about it this way, from an evolutionary perspective. Remember, evolution takes place over many, many interactions, many, many generations, many times. If I'm interacting with you a lot of times, and I can get you to yield to me a little bit more over time, that could have a huge impact on my ability to survive and reproduce. So even though generally speaking we're going to pay each other back pretty close to equal, if I can get a little bit better, that slight bias pays off, and my genes are going to do better in the next generation than yours. So we all should have this basic evolutionary tool, to try and tilt things in our favor in our accounting of favors. That's the main and most important concept that we were talking about here. Oh, sorry. And one other piece of it that is kind of important: status matters. So if in our relationship one of us is a little bit higher status in the social hierarchy, then that changes who's probably going to win these arguments about the dubious accounting. The person who has the higher social status, generally speaking, is going to extract a little more resources from the person below in the way that they keep track of things. I will keep more track, even closer track, of the favors owed to me by people below me in the hierarchy because, well, they're below me. And I'll keep less track of the favors that I owe to the people above me, but they're keeping track, so they're kind of keeping me in line. And part of this, I'll explain later, is because status itself kind of actually evens out that balance. But generally speaking, you're willing to give more to the people above you, and you're willing to take more from the people below you. All right. So if we're always constantly negotiating, to some degree, who owes whom what, arguments about that sort of thing, arguments about our own reputation or how we're going to be perceived, are really, really crucial to the way that our brains work. So it flows out of dubious accounting that we would expect to be really good at arguing. And in fact, of course, Robert Wright says something along the lines in the book of that the brain is a finely honed machine for winning arguments. So what are some of the strategies for winning an argument? He talks about this kind of interesting idea or term called pseudo-rigidity. Pseudo means fake. So you pretend to be firm in your beliefs, but actually you are willing to budge, but you've got to be perceived as not willing to budge. And that sort of may make the other person yield to you. But if you are so intractable that you're actually totally rigid and it's not fake, then of course you can't come to any agreement and maybe the friendship ends or maybe you start fighting. So it would be more of a hawk kind of thing. So you pretend to be firm and that might get you what you want. The other things that we do in order to win arguments is we pay very close attention to evidence that supports our point of view. We're very good at bringing it to mind, and we're not very good at bringing to mind evidence that does not jibe with our point of view, or we justify it, minimize it, deflect it, and try to generally say that it's not that important, and it may not even be true. And so those are natural, totally subconscious biases that we have when we're discussing things in opposition to other people. It's the way our brains work, and that's what evolution has given us that we're really good at arguing because it's about our reputation and it's about our perception of ourselves and how other people perceive us. And so we'll go to great lengths to defend it. Wright brings up this term that somebody came up with, benefactance. It's kind of just a handy way of keeping track of what are we trying to appear to be. So it's a handy way of remembering it. So benefactance, it's combining beneficial and effective, and we try to appear to be beneficial in reciprocal altruism. We try to appear effective in the social hierarchy. That's the reputation that we're trying to maintain. So it's just a kind of a handy way of remembering what we're trying to appear to be, benefactive or benefactance. So this last concept, as I said, this isn't a super long lecture, brings us back into this idea of dubious accounting through the lens of status. So status itself is a resource that can be shared among friends. So say that again. Status itself is a resource that can be shared among friends. So it's not just that I lend my friends money or I pick them up at the airport or that we help each other out with our homework once in a while. It's also that we pump each other up. I make my friend look good. My friend makes me look good. Okay? And by doing that, we give each other status. It's a perception of status. And powerful people, well, when they interact with us, their status rubs off on us, right? So that's why when it comes to dubious accounting, the person with the higher status is going to get more resources, but in return, you get to associate with them and your status rises. So it's a trade. The trade is status, and what the person at the top gets in return is resources from you. The idea of a powerful person with lots of lackeys running around doing things for them, and what do the lackeys get out of it? They get to associate with the powerful person. So status is important in our relationships with other people. We engage in this mutual inflation. We must protect our friends' status. We talked about this a little bit before. Now it makes even more sense, I think, and some of the other stuff that we've learned, and it leads to this idea of collective dishonesty, which is it's really important to most people that their friends believe them and trust them. So let's say that I'm in self-denial about something, or I brag about myself. I need you to back me up. If you're my friend, you're not going to tear me down or give me the truth and tell me that I'm not really great, unless you're trying to, bump down my status. But in most cases, what makes you a friend is that you believe the lies I'm telling. You believe I am as good as I say I am, and I believe that you're as great as you say you are, because if we can both believe it, then it might actually help us both appear better than we really are. So if you go back to the idea of the fundamental attribution error, the FAE, remember, if I'm successful, it's my skill, and if a stranger is unsuccessful, it's their luck. The FAE applies to friends and family, not just me. So if my friends and family are successful, it's because they're awesome, because their character is great. Okay? And if they fail, it's bad luck and bad circumstances. And so it applies not just to me, but to anybody very close to me, because their status reflects on my status. So that's the gist of it with status assistance. It gets really complicated and fun, and if you have any questions, please email me or come by. We'll be talking about this more in class. Do the reading, and I will see you later.